Okay, I'd like to challenge you to work through a range of topics that we came up with in another class and see if you can do some of this thinking before you try it on your own. So here is a organizer that we developed in another class of sixth graders for Neil Armstrong. We had just talked about Neil Armstrong because he is featured in a book that we had been talking about called Neil Armstrong is My Uncle and Other Lies Muscle Man McGinty Told Me. It's a great historical fiction book. Um, the historical part of it is the moon landing, and Neil Armstrong was the first person who landed on the moon. He was an astronaut. So we had just talked about him. He was fresh on our mind, and we used him as our example to work through it together. So we have Neil Armstrong as our very narrow, very specific topic, and then we had come up with a bunch of other terms that we thought would relate to him. After we talked for a while, we realized these were very specific about him and wouldn't help us move up to more general, more broad terms that would get us bigger results about more than just Neil Armstrong. So we moved them aside, and that left us with this set of terms: NASA, astronaut, American, the moon, and Space Commander, because he actually was the commander of the mission that went to the moon. So we had this set, and then I challenged them to talk to their neighbors and figure out what are the two we could pick out that would, and what order would you put those in to make this go from very specific to more general or broad. So I'm going to have you turn to some folks and talk about what you would do to take from this list and create a more broad term, and then one more even above that, testing your thinking at each stage. So what I put here, describing Neil Armstrong, but other people, what I put above that, will it describe this and Neil Armstrong as well as other people? Okay, so turn and talk to some neighbors and see what you would come up with.